Hello, Earth friends. Hello, alien dude. More about him later. All right. So, thank you so much for those people who have watched my previous video, which was about my NDE. Now, after reading the comments, I got the impression that people were more curious about what other experiences I might have had and that kind of thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually talk about an episode where I had an OBE. And what that means, for those that don't know, but I'm sure you probably do, is an out-of-body experience. When I was about 15 years old, that's when this particular experience occurred. I had befriended someone, like he became my best friend. He was very different to what I was in the sense of our musical tastes and just the way that we kind of look. Like he was very, how do you put it, flamboyant, all right? So he was very fresh to anything else that was around me at the time, because where I lived in Queensland on the Gold Coast, which is where I still live, the times were very different, and for someone like that, they particularly stood out. And he introduced me to kind of another way of expression, I guess you'd call it. And in Queensland at the time too, it was actually illegal. It was illegal to be gay, homosexual, or whatever you want to call it, right? So he was in a place where, you know, he wasn't telling everyone that he was gay, but he probably was, okay? And who cares? Like, I don't give a shit. But what was important is that he introduced me pretty much to myself and to accept that it's okay to be whatever you are. And for that, I forever love him, like really, like, you know. And it's unfortunate that he actually did pass very young at the age of about 18 years old, which I did mention earlier. However, I'd just like you to experience what I went through when I had my OBE, and it is in connection with my friend Paul. So I had a girlfriend who lived near a, indoor cricket. Like, she did indoor cricket. And so there was this big building with indoor cricket. I wasn't particularly keen on watching sports, but my friend Paul was with me. And of course, Paul being Paul, he was just being himself, like dressed however he was. But that attracted, I believe, a local trailer park in some countries, you might call it. Over here, it's just a caravan park. They're very nice people that live there. However, there was some people there who were very much, the brute types. Like, they weren't very friendly towards anyone that was even slightly different. And remember, it was illegal to be gay back then in Australia, like of all places, in Queensland particularly, I'm talking about. So I was outside with my friend Paul, and suddenly, from that area, from that park, there was, I don't even know how many people, but there was a whole bunch of people that came over, and they all kind of looked the same with, they had the short haircuts and flannelette shirts and all that kind of thing. Not that there's anything wrong with looking like that, but I'm just trying to, explain the differences in how our appearances might have looked. And so they came over and they circled us, right? Outside this is late at night, by the way, this is at night. And they circled us outside the venue. And in front of the venue, it was kind of like they had the parking further in, but at the front, it was all like just a great big patch of grass, basically, with some channeling, like water kind of ditches, if you know what I mean. Anyway, they circled us, and then one of them, the ringleader, came straight up to me, not to Paul. So I was very grateful that he didn't actually approach him. And I thought of that at the time because I thought that he was the one that was going to get picked on. Anyway, he came up to me and he said, "What did you call me in there?" And of course, he wasn't, I don't even think he was in the building anyway, but I never called anyone anything. I was just minding my own business. And I said something smart to him because I knew at the end of the day, he's going to hit me, all right? So if I'm going to get hit, I might as well say something offensive, which I did. And the next thing you know, I was hit. And the reason I knew I was hit was because I had these little specks of, in the cartoons when someone gets hit and you see the stars, little light white dots or whatever. And that's the only thing I remember was blackness with those dots, the white dots. I don't know what happened after that exactly, because I didn't go out of my body. I didn't see anything. I actually, from what I have been told, I fell backwards. I fell into the ditch. All those people that were there, they just scurried off, right? Left me there. Paul went inside. He notified the people inside, my girlfriend who was at the time playing indoor cricket, and a whole bunch of her friends and some of the people there. What they actually did was they carried me 2 blocks unconscious to her place and put me on the floor, on her lounge room floor. And so the time that went past was probably about 15 minutes. The whole time, no one called an ambulance. She didn't have a father living with her, but her mother had actually been away playing, not away, but she was not in the house because she was playing squash at another venue somewhere. So there was no adults, it was just us. I was about 15 years old. Anyway, and I wake up and there's all these people around me, right? Real people. So unlike my NDE so far, nothing happened. I don't remember anything, right? All I remember is the blackout and the white dots and waking up 15 minutes later, right? So from one place to another, and there's all these people, and I try to get up and I can tell there was something wrong. I think it actually did fracture my nose a bit. I had a blocked nose on one side for quite a while, and I had some issues after that with just trying to breathe from one end, through one nostril. So where my ex-girlfriend's place was, to get to my family home, there was a road that was getting built, and I took that shortcut, and it was through a foresty kind of area. And so late at night, maybe an hour or so later, I was clearly okay. I was conscious, all the rest of it. And I made my way home by myself on a dirt road, which ended up being one of the main roads on the Gold Coast. But at the time, it was a dirt road and it was kind of eerie, but that kind of stuff never really bothered me. I just kind of enjoyed the walk because I was processing stuff. So that walk would have taken probably, just at a guess, probably 25 minutes, something like that. Anyway, I get home. Everyone's pretty much in bed. I go to my room and I'm still processing what all happened. And then I started to get a little bit kind of like, I wanted revenge or something, like in my mind. And I'm creating all these stupid scenarios of, I'm going to go there and be the tough guy. And what I did was I put a record on. So I had a record player And I had it on repeat, and you can put the record on, but then it just keeps coming back and just keeps going back and playing the same songs on one side. And the record was important to me, right? Because the album was called Pornography. So not in like porn, but it means something else. And the band was called The Cure. Now, the reason that this was really important to me is because Paul was the one who gave me this album. And on the front of the cover, there are 3 kind of blurry images. And he told me, this is you. This represents who you are. And of course, I didn't understand what he was getting at. And when I first started listening to the album, holy crap, like it's the most depressing thing you could imagine. But something spoke to me through it. So I had this album, which was quite dark, but not heavy. Like I don't like heavy, heavy metal kind of stuff. But it was like the person singing, who was Robert Smith, who is Robert Smith from The Cure, it's like he was talking through me. Anyway, this thing was playing. And then, after a while, something shifted. And it's like my body became lighter on the bed. And I started to rise, literally felt like that. I started to kind of push against my body, I guess, but in a lighter way. And I had drifted to the ceiling, and I could see myself down there. And I'm like, whoa, what a trip. And I'd never taken drugs, by the way, but it felt like it was probably a trip or something, and with the concussion, with the knockout and all the rest of it, maybe something had happened. Anyway, and I'm looking at it, but then I noticed that on top of my wardrobe in my bedroom, I could see like the dust and little bits and pieces and, an old bottle top and stuff like that. And as I was going higher, like we had exposed beams on the ceiling, so I was getting really close to that. And on the other side of my wall was actually the lounge room. And once you get into the lounge room, it's like a big open space. And then there's like the A-frame kind of setup with the 2 massive windows, and that leads to directly outside. So as I was going up higher into the ceiling, I then started to think about that area where I'd been hit, like as in the location. And oddly enough, as I started to think that, I started drifting towards that location, which is where my ex-girlfriend lived, which is where I got knocked out and where also obviously I had come to, like I'd woken up. And as I was drifting, I literally was going through, or a part of me was going through the wall. And I went into the other room. And then I saw the big windows. And then I started to get really close to that. Now, what the parallel is for me, which when I think about it, is with my NDE, I saw the big light and I knew that if I went any further, I can't come back, right? And it was kind of the same feeling. Now, this was 18 years earlier I'm talking about. So this OBE had a similar kind of feel to it. I suddenly started to panic as I approached really close to the window. And I thought, if I go outside of that, I'm not coming back. That's it. So that's the similarity that I had 18 years later when I had my NDE. The difference was, now people talk about NDEs, and I saw it in one of the comments actually. I did a podcast with Jeff. I've just find it in the link below. But one of the comments was, if the reason that I didn't pass away, like I didn't come back, or like if I came back, right, that means that my silver cord hadn't been cut or something, right? So when your silver cord apparently is not visible, or you're away from it, or it breaks or whatever, some people think in an NDE that means that you will not come back. I don't know how people would think that, because who has come back to say that? I don't know. But anyway, but the point is, I actually had a cord in my OBE. And so when I actually saw this thing, right? And to be honest, right now, when I try to think about the color of it, I don't know. I can't remember the color. However, I would have written it down somewhere. So if I find it, I'll let you know. What I do know is I had a cord. And what I also know is I started to really panic. And I'm like, I need to get back to my body right now. So to me, it felt like this was all in real time, unlike the NDE, which it kind of didn't feel like any time. So as I was panicking, I could almost feel like I was not getting enough breath. And I know that sounds crazy because I'm out of my body. How could I be breathing? But it's like I had the realization that I should be breathing, and I'm trying to force a breath. And it's like when you're under the water for too long and you're like, you're trying to get up, and like you think it's just there, but you just have to keep going that little bit further. And you're like, am I going to make it, or am I going to drown? And that's what it felt like. So I'm like in a panic, and I'm trying to kind of do this kind of stuff, right? And yes, it was, I had a body, if you like, but obviously I had a body, but my body was somewhere else. And so I had gone back into the wall, into my bedroom, and then I ended up getting back into my body, and I just remember going, like it was, excuse my dog, he's probably freaking out because he's hearing these strange noises. But yeah, he, the dog, no, not he, me, I panicked, and I was wondering, like, what the heck just happened? And that kind of puzzled me for quite a bit, because I had not had that experience before. So I have an older brother, right? He's not much older, but he's an older brother. And I remember having a conversation with him, almost having a conversation with him, when he interrupted me, when he understood that I was talking about an OBE. Now this was, shortly after this incident. And he said to me, "Oh yeah, that." And apparently he used to practice it all the time, whatever that means. But he also said to me that as he got older, he couldn't do it anymore. And I found that really interesting. So I don't know if that's true. Maybe someone can comment about that kind of stuff. I don't know. But apparently as he got older, it just, I guess maybe it's the noise of the world, or your thoughts just get in the way, or whatever. So with mine, it was purely, it just happened. It's not like I willed it to happen, it just happened. And that is my OBE story. I don't know what the consensus is exactly with you guys in response to, do you have a silver cord when you've got an NDE? I don't know. I never had one. I didn't see one. I didn't see my body. I didn't see any of that. So that's my OBE story. If you've got one, please feel free to share whatever experiences you have. And what I look forward to also is sharing more of my experiences, because I think after all this time, it's time to share some of this stuff. even though a lot of it has already been published, but you know, it's not in the mainstream. And I think that, especially in this day and age where everyone's looking for something, and you know, everyone's looking for a bit of comfort or some sort of understanding. And I'm not suggesting that anything I say is, you know, going to resonate with you or is true for you. However, please just, you know, if you can add something to it, it might help someone else. So that kind of stuff is really appreciated. All right, so next time I might speak about, who knows? Who knows? We'll see. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.